Good morning, everyone. My name is Michelle Coca. You can find my contact information at linkedin.com/in/Michelle Coca. Pretty straightforward. So my talk is going to revolve around improving data quality and basically some generalized tips, applications, and how it can be used. I think it's important to give a little background. I don't know, in my experience, I've seen that many data scientists don't come from the same background. Not everyone did statistics, not everyone came from computer science or anything along those nature, so I'm going to give a quick background. So I'm a Miami native, to borrow a line from fellow Miamian Ross, born and raised in the county of Dade. I attended Florida State University. I originally planned to go to law school. That was always the goal for me. However, though, when I started majoring in political science, I fell in love with research methods, which was very statistically based, and also did economics afterwards and decided to do a double major in that. Afterwards, I saw that I really liked working with data, especially in the economic side. So I decided to do a Master of Science in Applied Economics. And since then, I started working at Amerant Bank, which was formerly known as Mercantile Commerce Bank. Basically, we're a community bank localized here in South Florida, Dade, Broward, Palm Beach, as well as we have some branches in the Houston and Dallas area. I originally started there as a CRM analyst. Basically, I was really thankful for my first supervisor. He really allowed me to get to know the bank data since I didn't come from a finance background at all, and to kind of learn how the core system works and really learn how the bank uses its data and what our end users, the line of business, really needs from our data for reports and making decisions. About 2 years later, I transitioned into becoming a data scientist full-time. Now I work more with creating models and solutions and applications for the business line to use to make more data-driven decisions. Okay, so today's agenda basically is going to revolve first the importance of data quality, why it's important. I feel like that's the foundation before we lead into the tips that really can help you at your organization to improving it, as well as some real business cases that I've done in the past at the bank. So basically, overall, that sums it up. Work smarter, not harder. For most of my experience, all business solutions need to have deadlines, and if you don't meet it, sometimes it hits your compensation, sometimes other parts of the project get delayed. So the better quality of data you have to start with, the more easier things will flow later on in your project. I think we all know the adage that 60 to 80% of doing a project revolves around data preparation. And if we get a good start and good data quality, we could drastically reduce that time. Since many of the issues discovered during the data prep stage are reoccurring and only get fixed during development and really aren't taken care of afterwards. In my personal experience, I feel like data quality revolves two major groups in the organization you're in. The first one is the IT department or the database and analysts. Basically, in my mind, I feel like they're in charge of the 6 dimensions of data quality. You know, the completeness, is your data getting there on time? If it's unique, the certain fields that need to be unique, your primary keys and such. And the second thing I want to point out is the data users and data area managers. At least for me, I've been lucky to have managers that really do care about data quality because they do understand the impact it has into our daily jobs and tasks that we have to provide for the business. So I feel like these two, us data users, data scientists, data engineers, along with the managers of the respective area, could really help improving it overall if we work together. Oh, there's the animation. Okay, so the first tip is pretty straightforward. You first have to know your data. And I feel like most of us work with it every day, so you do have an understanding of it. But just for those in the audience that are kind of maybe starting in this industry, in this field, it's always important to start with knowing your data. For me, like I said previously, it really was a blessing that for the first year to 2 months, I really got to learn the data and how it worked and where the databases were and which databases were for which type of data, for channel logs, or it was for more transactionals on the debit cards and things of that nature. I feel like everyone has an understanding of the CRISP DM methodology, but for those who don't, this is a standard in data science to kind of follow how a project should be running. First, it could come from requests from the business line. They need a solution to one of their challenges. Usually the second step is knowing if you have the data to solve that challenge. If you do, that's great. You can keep on going to the data preparation, the modeling. And here I would like to make a quick anecdote. For us in the business intelligence analytics team in the bank, we don't only focus on doing models. We also focus on doing interactive dashboards, doing interactive reports. So this could be applied more to just modeling, and it could be just a way of working in anything you're doing. Afterwards, you evaluate the performance of that dashboard, reports, models, and deploy it if it's good, and then it's a cycle that keeps on coming back and forth. But like I said, I think the animation didn't work. Okay, so data understanding to me is the most imperative, like I previously said, because let's say a business needs you to do something, but you don't have the data to properly solve that solution. You could always look at the data you do have and provide an alternative for the business, because they don't really know what's really available to them, and you have to kind of be the ones guiding them and be more their advisors on what they could potentially do. Oh, there it is. Okay, so the second part, part of knowing your data is, is it transactional? Is it coming from social media? Is it structured or unstructured? All these questions are very important because not data quality is created equally. Social media data is very unstructured. It's very prone to human mistakes and spelling. So let's say we turn around a sentiment analysis and someone misspells, terrific for, actually, I've seen this before. They try to write terrific when they're trying to say terrific, but they write terrible instead. And that's because we have a lot of international customers in our bank, so it's sometimes interesting to see that it's going very positive, and then you see a word that kind of throws off the whole entire sentiment analysis. The second part is always perform exploratory data analysis. Even if you're not doing a project and you happen to have some free time, to try to get more of your data. I actually do this on a weekly basis. We basically work with end-of-month data, and we're now slowly working with more day-to-day data. But I always run to see, okay, are there a number of accounts correct? Is it following the same trend that we've been seeing the past few months? For instance, I think yesterday I saw in one of our databases the number of accounts almost doubled, and that's when a red flag came up, and I had to contact the DBA that's in charge of that database to kind of figure out what's the issue, why is it being duplicated, and things along that nature. Missing data. Sometimes missing data could be fine. Sometimes some people can't put in, email because for our older clients, they're not very digitally, savvy. So it's fine sometimes to have missing data. However, though, when it's something very, imperative like a account number, that should be a very worrying sign, and your red flag should be raised. And the next logical step is take notes of your concerns. Keep a log of where the issues are coming from. What database, what server, what column, what row specifically, if it's not a whole entire problem for the rest of your data. My tip number 2 is to be vocal about these issues. Nothing's ever going to get fixed if it's not being spoken about. So the first thing is speak to the business unit that's in charge of that data source. Internally we have different support areas, and they do create their own models and things along those natures. And when we do see an issue coming from one of the data they're providing us for our dashboards, we do ask them, we saw that this was unusual. Do you have a response for it? And sometimes, depending on who you're working with, it could be, thank you for catching that. We're going to fix it right away. But usually, we have other priorities right now. We'll get to it when we get to it. So sometimes it can be frustrating, but overall, as if you're not vocal about it, they will never know, because they have so many things on their plate as well. You can't just expect everyone to kind of catch it and just fix it. Second thing that we learned really hard in our area is to never mask any data issues. If you keep on fixing the data and not letting anyone know about it, you're not really helping yourself. You keep on doing a lot of reworking, in anything you're producing. For example, for many years in the past, there are sometimes customers that didn't have a segment. And usually most customers should have a segment based on, their characteristics and all that nature. However, most of the business units used to put in, let's say, a wrong branch number that doesn't even exist anymore. So then that customer would have no segment. And then it happens to be, one of the most, prized customers for a certain officer. And like, I don't see my customer in my report. Well, they technically don't fall under your segment because it has a wrong segment. And then that's when people start, okay, I'm gonna go fix it now. Like I said again, if you're vocal about it and don't try to fix the issues and just let them show as it is, and then you kind of advise your business unit or your end user to kind of, fix the situation so it works better for you and the business owner at the end. Another very helpful tip I've had is quantify the loss of time or the billable hours or how it works in your organization of these data issues. Once you put a dollar number next to these issues, higher management, more likely your manager or their manager, starts paying attention real quickly. There's a really good statistic that I saw from IBM that said that the annualized cost of data quality issues in the US economy is about 3.1, I think is trillion dollars. Wanted to make sure it was trillion, not billion. So that's a lot of potential growth that are going down the drain because more people are spending time fixing these issues when it could be corrected at the source. If we're maybe a little bit more vocal about it and we have more willing partners in the different areas in our organizations to fix the issue. And lastly, if all these other tips don't work, try to form a coalition with other areas in your organization. I feel like the more people come together and have the same, pains about the same issues, more likely management can't say no to fixing a certain issue. They would say, okay, this is a real problem. This is not, the little boy that cried wolf. This is actually a real issue that we need to get addressed if we want to keep on being profitable and, being very efficient. And my third tip is become more involved with your data repository solutions. This might be the case for everyone in the audience, but my unit specifically it is. We very work hand in hand with IT, and anytime we hear that we're getting a new loan system or we're getting a new CRM, we always are there in the kickoff meetings to ask, okay, so where is this data that this application is generated going to? What's the structure? What's the mapping? That tends to be very helpful for you later on when you have to pull data that's very specific to those applications that you can't find anywhere else in your organization's database. So yes, I would say try to get involved as much as you can, as much as your position and your team allow you to. Second thing is become resourceful with creating data quality processes that maybe you can't fix at the source or the other support areas don't really are paying mind to. For example, in our team, we have the raw data that comes from our core systems, and then from that data we create views. And those views, that's where we put most of our data prepping and data quality processes to work. Basically, any known columns that we know that might have issues, we already start doing coding on that view to kind of fix those issues or kind of identify when there are issues or not. At the executive level, there's one, tried and true test of fixing data quality issues, and that's placing compensation goals to that. I know from my manager and his previous experience in another bank, basically that's what really improved their data quality. They started putting to the officers that put data into the core system when they're opening an account and making sure if there's a miswritten or invalid email, we're docking you from your bonus. And that really did help them improve their data quality by, I think he told me, about 30%. So when you're affecting someone's pocketbook, it's always a good idea to kind of make incentives towards that, if it's possible. So I'm going to go through some real business applications we've done at the bank. I apologize in the report for not applying more applications, but the bank really limits me, what I can share and not share. So the first one is email addresses. I already kind of touched this on a little bit. So it's very prone to human error. Misspelling a certain, name incorrectly. And there's also the other type of issues that occur when a customer really doesn't want to give you the email. They think they're going to spam the inbox, so they just write, they give you something, but they miss the yahoo.com, or they miss a certain syntax formation, that's going to go to like a block status and things along those natures. So our solution at the bank was create a syntax validation function and basically send all these invalid syntax functions to the business line. Like, look, this is your list for this week. This is how many emails you have correctly. Sadly, we can't tie their compensation to fixing these issues, so we sometimes don't get the improved data quality on the emails that we send out, but some people do care and they do fix it. So here's just a little snippet of our SQL that we created in our view to kind of validate whether the syntax is, valid or not. It's very simple. It's just using a like statement where, they have to have the @ sign and then a space and a dot. We can't really put .com because some of our customers are from like educational institutions. So it's if you put, .com and then it turns out the end of the domain is .edu, it's going to mark it as invalid. So that's why we had to kind of leave that % mark at the end there. And there's more things you can add to this. We actually have added special character checks. If we find an exclamation or a semicolon or 2 @ signs, that's another indicator that it's an invalid email, and basically I've sent it to the business line. Look, we found this incorrect email syntax. Please talk to your customer and please get it fixed. The second one is physical mailing addresses. So basically, we're a bank. We need to send, disclaimers, privacy notices for those customers that didn't provide their emails. So the next step is physical mailings. But the challenge there is that sometimes, I'll scroll one more. In our core system, we don't have designated fields for the address line parts. For example, we have 6 fields, and in any of those 6 fields, the officers can put whatever part of the address in any of them. So there's no standardization or anything of that nature. So sometimes the city could appear in field 5, or sometimes it appears earlier, like in field 4. So that's one of the challenges, and FedEx is one of our carriers, and they do request that, the address line do not provide city and state on them. So it makes it a little bit clearer for them when they're doing their sorting and such. So our solution is, this one's a little bit more complicated. Basically what we do is that we append all 6 address fields, right? And then we pull a table from the USPS zip code that has, for each zip code, all the possible cities associated with that zip code. Afterwards, we run length checks on the address field that we concatenated, as well as how long each city and also the state, the length of those fields, and then we run a check against the position where these potential city or state could appear in the address line. And if it does match that city or state, then that's when we start truncating it and doing substring of all the carriers that come before that point. Oh, sorry. So here's a snippet. We do this in SAS. So basically, you can see that we start with positioning of the length of the address line, and then we subtract it. In this case, is for seeing U.S. state abbreviations, and then we add a +1 for the space that would come. And if the position is more than 2 of that difference, then we go through this whole logic to start substringing things. So that's just a little bit of the code that we use. And now there's some general instances that I really can't provide things because most of it has to do with account numbers and things of that nature. But in generally, time deposits balances were too high one time. What we found out was a branch associate placed the account number in the balance field. So let's say usually we have 1 million on any given day. It jumped up to almost 1 trillion because the account numbers are very long. So that was a fun issue we had to help get fixed. And luckily we did. Quickly enough, we sent it to the operations team for that specific branch, and they were able to get it squared right away. So that's one of the positive experiences I had getting an issue resolved. but things that you can't help and sometimes happen, human nature and, human error. Yeah. And it's not very frequent. That's really important to note. So this is not something that we will try to come a solution with. There's no way you can provide like a solution for that. It's not very frequent. There's just no way you could avoid that sometimes. Second issue we had specifically with time deposits was your terms. So in our course system, basically when you open a time deposit, let's say you do it for a year, that time deposit account is going to be stuck with that year of term for the rest of the life of that CD. So let's say you see a better rate a year from now and you want to do it for 5 years, then in our system, that field does not change ever. And that was something that was really hindering us for various initiatives that we had to do concerning on time deposits. So this obviously is a reoccurring issue. That's something that we really did need to solve because a lot of our initiatives depended on knowing what CDs are gonna, be maturing in what time frame. So in conjunction with our operations team, basically we are able to use another field in our data in our course system to kind of know what's now the new term of that CD, and that was very helpful from us from now, so we could be reporting more accurate numbers than reporting what the CD originally was, because in a year it's not going to be maturing. It's really in 2 years or 3 years or whatever the case is. And that's all I have. But thank you everyone. I have questions.